Watch out for the hole.
What hole? Watch out for the portable hole. Rock out to the portable hole. Watch out for the portable hole. Rock out to the portable hole.
Welcome to the Portable Hole Podcast. I'm Ryan George. I'm here with Cynic, Ig, and Justin. We just coming off another round of D&D. Where Cynic, you're doing a great job as our DM. So how's everyone doing today?
Pretty good.
I'm doing all right. I
Reacclimating back to the
just,
city.
I'm still, they didn't heal my hit points from the last one. You know, it's like we had a little healer minion run around throwing hit points at people, everyone except for me. So like, I'm hurting a little bit, but doing okay.
Hey, Cynic, how does that work? Do we heal up in between?
Yeah, you got to take
Okay.
a long rest, which
Okay.
that'll happen as long as you don't encounter anything on the way to Bear Island.
Okay, got it. All right, so we'll be back to full strength. Are we gonna stay at level 2, or we?
Yeah, only because I want you guys to kind of get used to your characters and maybe some of you to read your characters, so I don't have to explain how everything works all the time. And because it gets a little more complicated for a lot of the character classes at level 3.
Yeah, no, I was going through it. I printed out my character sheet the first time, and I got to do it again just so I have easy access to everything, because in the equipment, and everything. So yeah, so be a little bit more prepared next game.
And we got to figure out why Egg is so fluffy, because not wearing armor is supposed to be a benefit. And I started reading Reddit, and they're like, just wear armor, and that doesn't go along with the whole barbarian scheme.
Yeah. Well,
The whole thing for me
you're the DM,
is
so you...
the roll of the die is very weird for me because I'm used to playing Dragon Quest, so which there's almost very little luck. Like you might have more luck in whether you get a powerful blow or something like that, but there's not that. Everything is based on the way that you build your character, the items and the armor and the weapons that you use, the way that you divvy up the statistics for their powers. So this to me is just very different, where so much is reliant on the roll of the die.
I think
That's
you're
just the
thinking
system,
about,
though.
because the thing is, Dragon Quest still rolls a die. I think you're thinking of when you have actually leveled the character. And when you're a low-level character fighting things that are maybe a little higher than you, your chances to miss are a lot more often. Same thing in World of Warcraft.
Absolutely.
Like when you're a low-level character,
Yeah.
the rolls happen still. It's still a dice-rolling game. It's just, if you're already leveled, your chance of missing or not critting or things like that are much lower. When you're leveled up, you're going to hit all the time because you build it into
And I
your
figured that
character.
was what it was going to be. Once the characters are stronger, you're going to have less variance with. We hope that if I don't roll a 14, I'm not going to do any damage. So I figured that would happen.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is that after you level, then you start fighting things that are equivalent to your level. So yeah, they'll still
That
be
is strong
equally
as-
as hard to hit,
Yeah.
or stronger,
So that's
or
what
more hit
that's what I
points.
was
But
saying.
we're gonna have to do an internal investigation on the Georges, because they were both rolling out of their minds all weekend, and lots of 20s and high damage rolls. And I think there might be some performance enhancing rolling going on over at the George residence.
Yeah. Well, although there were a couple of really bad rolls too, so I feel like it was like all or nothing for us this time.
Yeah, but that was at the beginning, and I think you only did that to throw us off the scent.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like when it counted, we got our 20s. No, but I enjoy the kind of luck of the draw. I think it makes it fun. I think but I think definitely I see how it also becomes a very strategic game. With all the gear that you have and just everything going on. So I think as that what do I do, and what goes on? Part of it also I think is just trusting that you'll guide us in the right direction as our fearless leader, Cynic.
I just love the fact that you sent your poor rogue in to get an opportunity attack, and then he stood up and just wailed her across the room as if he was Babe Ruth. Damn near cleaved her in half.
Yeah.
It was a good plan.
It was,
It didn't work, but it was a good plan.
Yeah. We do it again. All right. So let's get into some news. There's a bunch of news that I've kind of accumulated over the last few weeks that we have been off. So some interesting stuff, some weird stuff, and then some stuff that's kind of relevant to us. So I guess the first thing, this is from a few weeks back, but it's just so ridiculous that I wanted to get your guys' thoughts. So Ronda Rousey, who can't seem to find her way into any decent press, had to issue so she had a Reddit Ask Me Anything type of session a few weeks back, maybe a month now. And I think it basically got taken over by people like asking her about like some of the dumb things that she's said in the past, which includes sharing conspiracy theories about the Sandy Hook shooting, among many other things. Oof. And so she finally, 12 years later, to 12 years later, issued an apology, calling it her most regrettable decision, and then deleted the post, acknowledging that the damage had been done. And said that she was afraid to address it sooner, fearing that it would cause more harm. Cynic, what do you think about that? Do you think
I think that's complete bullshit.
Yeah,
I think that she was hoping people would forget. But the problem is that with this still actively going on with Alex Jones, who basically started those conspiracy theories, him still being sued and in the process of paying these poor families, it's never really going to go away until InfoWars is shut down and it becomes a Spirit of Halloween store. And I think we're headed in that general direction, and hopefully Alex will be able to get a job there and be able to hawk stuff for 3 months out of the year and then maybe live on unemployment for the rest of the time. But I mean, there's certain things that you don't say out loud. And I'm not just talking about the C word or the N word or the R word. There's certain things that you think that maybe amongst your closest friends you can talk about, but to go on a public forum and run with these terrible fucking conspiracy theories just makes you look like a moron, and you always end up losing in the end. And that's what she did. She lost in the end. I mean, respect for Ronda Rousey's probably at an all-time low, but I think the one thing that changed with her is she started having kids. And with kids come perspective that, hey, if my kids are hurt, I don't know how I would deal with this. That's part of the reason why I never had kids, because I think that would be the end. If anything happened to my kids, I think I would just be done. And to think that you lose your kid and then somebody's just saying this vile thing like, oh, they never existed, they were crisis actors, this is all set up, false flag. It's probably the worst possible thing next to calling someone a pedophile that you can do.
Well, in this day and age where, like, everything we say and do is scrutinized, and as I would think as a celebrity, like, you have to know that. Like, do you think it's realistic that she just thought she could kind of just get away with it over time, or like, was she just completely misguided?
Well, I think she functions 100% on hubris. What do you think, eh?
Yeah, I think that, at the time, it was one of those things where she thought she was basically untouchable. She was so popular in so many things. I think at that time she was just about done with her MMA career and was just starting in WWE, right? So, like, she was so popular, and like there was, and Alex Jones at the time was very popular, even though he started saying that, and like people were like shying away from him with a quickness. And I don't know why people think that they should just say anything, and especially in like so soon after the aftermath. I mean, I think it's still too soon to kind of joke or come up with conspiracy theories about children dying. Like, you want a conspiracy theory about 9/11, you want a conspiracy theory about
Justin,
about the things that are going on in Israel and stuff right now, go ahead. Because, if you're talking about the adults, but when you start talking about children, like, there's no cause. There's no reason that anybody's out there trying to kill kids. And that's just a recipe for disaster. It's never okay. No matter who the kids are, no matter where they are, no matter who their parents are, it's not okay.
So, Justin, do you have any sympathy for someone who maybe kind of dived down the conspiracy rabbit hole, and maybe you just get stuck, and maybe a combination of hubris and ignorance makes you post things you probably shouldn't have posted?
So I think that there's what I would call reasonable conspiracy theory rabbit holes to dive down. And it's easy to get into it. Like there's something sort of fun about conspiracy theories, like that learning about this information that the masses don't know, that people don't seem to know what's going on, and you're finding out these secrets. It's kind of similar to the online sleuthing phenomenon that we've seen in the past become very popular in the past 15 years or so. But there's levels to the game. So yeah, do you want to say something like, if you say something like, well, I believe that Dick Cheney had some sort of hand in 9/11, whether he let it happen or like something like that, you could say that, and you can sort of get away with it, because if there's some intellectual sense behind it, would you put it past Dick Cheney to murder his own people for his gain? I would. But there's a big difference between that and saying that a school shooting where people died and everyone saw it didn't happen with children.
Well,
as
history has shown that.
So there is
history has shown that. History has shown that we've been complicit in just about every war. Like, we've let things happen for provocation.
Yes.
So to say that we were complicit in the planning in 9/11, sure. I mean, that's within the realm of possibilities politically.
Yes.
To say we were detonating buildings at ground zero is fucking asinine. Seeing people fall from the sky that day, I don't know how anybody, especially us, because we're, well, the three of us, because we're so tied to the area, that you could ever just shrug that off. That, now, can you say that, maybe the government did stand down, or maybe they didn't have aircraft in the area on purpose so they could start whatever war that they're grinding axes for? Sure. I think that's what, but
realm
I think
of
sometimes
possibility
it goes too far. It leaves logic.
Exactly. And just not to mention, like, just the pain that families are going through, and to just rub that in. It's like, even if right, that happens and you're reading something that seems like, oh, this is interesting, like, you still can't do that, because there's like grieving families, and unless I know with 100% certainty, I'm not going to do that, because that's causing them more pain than they're already going through. And it's just, it's kind of, it's insane, and it's like, I'm glad that she kind of got that pushback, and I'm a little surprised maybe it took so long, but also I think
I'm wondering
now
about
with her
why.
Well, I think
why.
so.
Like with Alex Jones, when you have somebody whose job it is to stir up controversy, and in dealing with media, and you're trying to like get a rise out of people, then that makes sense. But for Ronda Rousey, I'm not getting the why.
Well, like, I mean, like, I think Cynic, I forget. So I think like I said, part is hubris, right?
Just hubris.
Part is like, these are famous people who are not necessarily the most intelligent people, logical and critical thinking people, and you combine a huge platform with some ignorance and a willingness to say things. Oh, I'm just putting it out there, and that's what you get. And so I'm not
I think
really
there's people
shocked.
that grew up with the idea that no press is bad press.
Yeah,
and that used to be true when press was slow, right? It would take a long time to get across the country, and it'd play the telephone game across. And what you originally said isn't what got printed on the other end of the country. But we're in an instant world now. You say something and everyone in the world knows it. You can't do those things anymore. You need to think about what you say, and it's pure hubris, because people are thinking, I can say what I want. Look how popular I am. I can get away with anything I want to get with. And if he's saying it, I can say it. And you said it right on the nose with the level of intelligence. They are so easily swayed to believe something that is just absolutely ridiculous to believe, because they're not intelligent enough to bring up that thought on their own. So they're mimicking, they're parroting something that somebody else is saying, because they think that it makes them look intelligent. And if it's not in your purview, if it's not where you belong, shut the fuck up about it, honestly.
Well, I encourage everybody to watch Into the Storm. I was going to bring it up in my what I'm watching, but since we're talking about it, if you remember QAnon in its heyday, those motherfuckers believed anything that was put out by Q or anything higher up in QAnon went everywhere, and it was like wildfire, and it started to affect normal everyday life. So I think it's kind of like QAnon, and it's kind of like MAGA now. It's these people believe that they're part of a group, that they're going to be supported regardless of what they say, and they're in the know somehow, like the rest of us schlubs don't.
And that's the big thing.
I had a guy the other day, like, just shit all over the news, and I nicely asked him, I said, well, sir, where do you go get your news? Are you getting it from social media? Are you getting it from memes? Are you getting it from the outlet that was just sued for record high defamation settings or settlement? I said, where do you get your news that you're so much in the know and nobody else does? And the answer to that question is there is no answer. You've got to dig through whatever shit that you watch and figure out what the truth is to you.
Yeah.
And, look at it from all sides. Don't shut off CNN because they say something that upsets you. Don't shut off Fox News because they're spouting ridiculousness. You've got to hear it all over, and then you got to make up your own mind. And a lot of people can't do that, nor will they take the time to.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And I think especially with Ronda, I think it's a little disingenuous. Like I think it's more that she could get by on she was a great MMA fighter for a time. She was good at pro wrestling for a time. She had her name, and now that she's kind of branching off into other endeavors, writing a book and I think writing comics or something like that, I think she needs to ingratiate herself to a larger portion of the public. And so in the past, where you could just ignore or block people on social media, now you can't because you want to try to get people to like you. And so I think part of it is that, and so it's like, I'm not shocked by the why. I'm more curious as like, why now to apologize? And I think that's really what it has to do with is like, this is the, I'm a cool person, down to earth person tour. And yeah, in order to do that, you wipe the slate clean, I guess. So I think it's a little disingenuous.
Well, if there's any conspiracy to go with that, they may have hired, her publicist may have hired people to come in and ask those questions to give her the opportunity to apologize. So it makes it look like she's a decent human being.
Yeah.
So maybe she can sell her comics or something. Yeah. What right does she have to be writing books or selling comics? Like, okay, unless it's a book about, how to do certain jujitsu styles or something, like mind your business, go somewhere else. Like just because your name is Ronda Rousey, that doesn't make you anywhere near in the realm of writing like a comic book like you did, because like you spent your whole life in nerd culture. So writing a comic book for nerd culture people, that's your right, because that's where you live. But like she's been a combatant. Go be a combatant. Yeah. Go do that. And if you're not there, like go announce combating. Go stand and tell people what's happening and why it's good or bad. But
part of it is she's an insufferable person. She's not a good person. Like we saw it in the Ultimate Fighter against Misha, where she just came off as a brat, where she was very narcissistic and she was just emotional in a bad way. And Misha came off as very likable and just like, oh, this is you see these two sort of female pioneers of MMA. And it was totally Ronda's chance to say, oh, I really like her. And then she came off very unlikable. And Misha came off as, oh, this is the pioneer that I want to like. And then, of course, around Holly Holmes, Ronda really came off unlikable as well. So I think it's damage control, Yeah,
no, that's fair. All right. So on to the next story. So this is a little bit of a quick follow-up on what we talked about last time. And also like, just we should probably not fly Boeing if we can, but as we mentioned last week, there were a couple of astronauts were stuck as their Boeing Starliner capsule had some issues. They're stuck in the International Space Station. They were set to return, and that was delayed. So now, as it stands, the Boeing Starliner is set to return from the space station, sends the two astronauts who will stay on the International Space Station until February, and return with SpaceX. One of the good things that Elon's done, and he'll be in the news a little bit later. So there've been several issues with Boeing, both their Starliner and their planes, and it just seems like a mess. But I guess how rough does that? I mean, obviously when you're an astronaut, you do what you're doing this because you love it, and and there's a certain amount of risk associated with it. But Ig, how rough would that be if like you go away for like a weekend away, and then now you got to be away from your family for 6 months?
It'd be rough, but that's one of those things where, just like Ronda Rousey, they're going to be able to turn this into huge paychecks because they're going to be able to write books about like how this all happened. And tell me they're not going to. Tell me they're not going to go on speaking tours and get paid huge amounts of money to go do these things. Of course they're going to. Yeah. So, I'm sure I've seen, all kinds of videos coming from the space station because like, the Americans that have been up there have done all kinds of things to like for kids and for everybody to see what it's like to be up there. it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't supposed to be there for that long, but it's not like they're up there like hunting for food because there's nothing to hunt. There's food there. You know, there's air there, and like, okay, you're going to lose some bone density, but people have been up there that long before. I think the people that they're going to be there with are going to be up there just as long as they are. It's okay, you know, and just look at it like, hey, I'm up here. They get good internet connectivity. They can still talk to their families every day. You know, it's, you know, and someone's going to cash a huge paycheck.
Yeah.
And a lot of it from afterwards, but they're going to get paid a huge amount of money for getting left there, right?
No, they're not actually.
Somebody's going to give it to them.
Well, yeah, they make, but yeah, actually surprising that like this is part of their pay. So I think they, they make a little bit of extra money, but they're not going to get like any extra like major
the money's going to come
bonus
from
for
speaking
being
tours
there.
and
But, yeah, you're right,
endorsements.
Well,
like,
it's going to come from
like
somewhere, and they might just sue NASA when they get back for, you know, not moving fast or having a backup plan.
Yeah, but is that money worth the butthole clinch ride home that they're going to have to go through?
Yeah, right.
Or if
Definitely if they get on the Boeing ship.
and if that ship blows up 5 minutes out of port, you know, like, would you ever want to leave at that point?
Yeah,
would you
imagine
ever
that.
trust?
Like,
I just live here now. I'm in space.
Yeah.
It's good.
Now, you've got a company that's floundering. They used to be the end all be all in aviation. And talk about failing up. Their CEO was given a $33 million bonus for their planes falling out of the sky, for new planes that they're building being grounded, for subverting FAA regulations and investigations. And the guy took a $33 million bonus.
Yep.
People should go to jail behind that shit.
Well, you know, that's corporate America,
That's it.
right?
yeah.
He made whatever numbers that got to that bonus and everything. And
What numbers?
I dare you to go find a major airline that 90% of their fleet isn't Boeing aircraft.
Yeah.
Any of them.
Yeah.
They're all Boeing. Like in the whole world, they're all Boeing aircraft.
You know, I say if there's one industry that you do not want to, you know, that you want all the regulations, it's like aviation.
And it's quite honestly still the safest way to travel.
Yeah. But it's a little
I tend to
scary
think
now.
that
when I see
telepathy
it.
is a little safer, for at least for now.
Yeah, sure. Or astral projection.
You're just going to think about where you're going and enjoy it in your mind.
Well,
Take some
if I
mushrooms
could take a
and-
trip on Expedia through telepathy, then I'll absolutely do that.
Yeah, seriously.
You know, it's funny that you bring that up because, like, some of you are traveling very soon and some of you have just traveled. And I'm willing to bet that, like, both of you have, well, all three of you, because Justin travels all the time, too. You're getting on planes. Most of them are Boeing planes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
Thanks,
what was really bad is did you guys see that plane that went down in Brazil a couple weeks ago? I saw that was like a couple days before I left. And so like that, and I think at some point I was, I like had a dream on the flight that I was on, like that was happening. And like I jolted myself awake and it was not fun. So
I'm just putting it out there now. If it happens to me, none of you can have any of my stuff.
I'm coming to take it.
You're going to take the cynic sign. All right. All right. So now we'll get into a little pop culture news. So Ted Lasso, which we all thought was over, apparently they've renewed the contracts for the cast members, and so I'm not sure if I don't know that it's completely greenlit, but it's looking like there are plans to set up a writer's room, and that we may get another season of Ted Lasso. So, Cynic, I know I was a big fan of the show. Ig, I know you're a big fan. Justin, I don't think you've watched Ted Lasso.
I saw a little bit of it. It's sort of. It was the sort of thing that it didn't make me like want to keep watching. So I thought it was funny.
You need to give it. How much of it did you see though? Because you need to give it a little bit of time.
I don't remember. That's what I was told that I need that you got to give it the college.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Cynic,
how are you excited about it, or is this a show that like you were glad it ended the right way, and we should just leave it be?
Well, I don't think the story is necessarily over, but I think you need to spin it off and call it something else, like Richmond. Just call it Richmond and drop the Ted Lasso because he's obviously not going to be a part of the show anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's enough talent. I mean, if you look at the last season, it was barely about Ted Lasso anyway. Yeah. Once he announced that he was going home, the story became about everybody else, and I think that was intentionally and well placed. And I just think that there's enough talent and enough story with these people that you probably could wring 2 or 3 more seasons out of it. I mean, any amount of Roy Kent is not enough Roy Kent in my book anyway.
So, do you think we can get by with a show that does not feature Jason Sudeikis as Ted Lasso?
Maybe, but they're gonna have to. I mean, like Joe said, Roy Kent was a big force in that last season, and all the seasons, honestly. And it's just one of those things where if they take the time and they spend the money and they write it well, and they don't just like, we're gonna cash in on some money, which I think Apple TV's been pretty good about not just cashing in on money, because they aren't selling a lot of merchandise, right? They aren't making money off of other places. If your stuff sucks, people are going to stop subscribing and they just leave. Apple's done pretty good about most of the stuff they put out is worth watching. So I think that if it's not good, if it's not written well or something, they may not even film it. Or if they film it and the first one sucks, they'll just stop. And that's fine. And I think that there's possibilities. I want to know what they're going to do, because as much as it was about other people in the final season, Ted Lasso still kind of brought it all together. So maybe it's a little difficult to run without him. And Joe's right. Call it Richmond if you're going to go further. Don't call it like Lasso's Legacy or something weird like that.
No, yeah, Richmond's perfect. All right. So in other pop culture news, recently, George R.R. Martin, who seems to do everything but write The Winds of Winter, has recently criticized some of the changes in House of the Dragon season 2, particularly the removal of Prince Maelor from the Blood and Cheese plot. And he argued that this weakens key future storylines, such as certain things that happened to Helena and a kind of societal impact. And although he was initially opposed to some of these changes, I think he accepted it due to production and budgetary constraints. But he seems more concerned about writing about what's wrong with a season of a show based on what's effectively like an encyclopedia entry than writing and finishing his series. So, Cynic, do you think George R. R. Martin should just lock himself in a room and finish Winds of Winter?
Well, Ryan, that's the thing. I mean, it was about a year and a half ago now that we went and saw that talk, and I left that theater fully convinced that we'll never get those books.
Probably.
Just because watching my wife write her dissertation, and she's much like he is in his process, where things need to be perfect for her to sit down and start putting pen to paper. I just don't think he's going to find the time. I think he's doing things in lieu of writing, like to replace writing. I don't think we'll ever get the end of those stories. I would be highly surprised if we ever have those books in our hands or on our Audible. It didn't inspire me with a lot of hope at all. And the fact that he didn't even talk about them, just the process of writing, how hard it is, not what he wants to do in the books or not what he saw different from the TV show that he would like to do. There was none of that. We got his background and we got it, that writing is hard. And then Kevin Smith, who seemed very high at the time, said, yeah, I pretty much can write on the toilet. I can write anywhere because he's writing dick and fart jokes.
Well,
I just think it's funny that, like, isn't this the same book that when the original Game of Thrones started, we're waiting for? Same book?
Yeah.
He hasn't released a book?
Almost.
Did he release a book during the original Game of Thrones?
One.
Oh.
Yep. He did release one.
Pimp down. Pimp in distress.
Yeah.
So, but I know at least halfway through, like, we didn't have Winds of Winter.
Yeah.
So that's what, 12, 15 years? I mean,
yeah.
At this point, can you call yourself a writer anymore?
Yeah. Well, he writes. He's just not writing.
Well, so
I write blog posts. That doesn't make me a writer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. When Cynic, you nailed it. It's like he's more interested in doing everything but writing. And I'm not going to compare myself to him on the level of success he has, but it reminds me of myself, right? When I'm busy being creative, working on either new songs or podcast ideas or articles or script stuff, I don't care about anything else. It's like I'm having a ball working on this stuff. And when I'm sort of in a creative funk, I'll go on to Quora or Reddit or whatever and start writing dumb political rants and starting trolling people. So I get that mentality. It's like when you have momentum in the projects that you're doing, you don't care. It's like if he was really happy with what he was doing, it's like, all right, you write 2 words and be like 2 lines, be like, yeah, I don't love this, or not mention anything. and just move on. So to me, Cynic, it sounded like exactly what you said. He's interested in doing everything, and I think it's because he's not enjoying writing anymore, or at least he needs to find some new mojo with it.
Well, he won't be complaining when he's cashing those hot D residual checks, I'm sure.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course.
That's the thing, is like, you want to keep putting these shows on because we've got Night of the Seven Kingdoms right around the corner, like next year. So I'm sure he'll have a hand in that as well. Just sit down and write the novel, or pay someone to write them for you.
Even if
and
you
just
get
give
that
them
executive
ideas.
producer credit
like
or something, they're still writing you a check.
Well, he did. One thing he did say on this that I think we can all wholeheartedly agree with is that he said Paddy Constantine's portrayal of Viserys made him want to rip up what he wrote and start over. Like, that's how good he was, and that's a fair. Can't argue with that, but I'm just afraid he might actually do that, and again spend more time working on that than his.
You're not writing that book, dummy.
I don't want to see anything happen to the old fella, but I really do think we need like an Annie Wilkes type figure to swoop him up and lock him in a cabin somewhere and break his knees till he starts writing again.
Exactly. There's a little hope that maybe he's wasting all this time because he's finishing the 2 books and he's going to just announce it, but I highly doubtful.
Did you get that? Did you get that sense from him?
No, not at all.
No.
I did not.
He's too many other places. He's got to go to Comic Cons and sign autographs for $100 a pop. And
exactly. No.
We got his autograph.
Yeah, autograph book.
How much did you have to pay for it?
Well, we just had to pay for the tickets.
Yeah, it was the price of the tickets.
Yeah, it was the price of the tickets.
That was kind of
cool. Yeah, it was great. Because I don't think I expected that, or I'm not sure if I forget.
Well, we bought the upgraded tickets that were a little more.
Yeah. No, it was fun. All right, so now we'll switch over to probably the worst job security in the world. So Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader, ordered the execution of between 20 and 30 officials for failing to prevent severe flooding and landslides in July, which resulted in about 4,000 deaths. They were accused of corruption and neglect. And I guess he called for strict punishment after touring the flood affected area. So if you were in anywhere in any capacity in North Korea, would you take a chance at taking any position with any kind of power?
Well, especially Justin, those positions after what happened to those people.
Yeah, Justin, would you replace any of those people?
Seems a little Lord
any
Vader.
amount of money, like.
It's kind of like I don't know. The thing is, I don't know if you have a decision. It's not about what you replace. It's kind of like you're taking the job, right?
Yeah.
Be like,
it's almost a place where you just I have no ambition, basically. Although I guess if you have no ambition, you're going to be starving. So I don't know what's worse.
This is I don't know what else is wrapped up in there with the corruption, but it's like if you take that position, but you're very pro government and pro Kim Jong Un, and just like you lick his nutsack, you probably have good job security, regardless of what happens.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
There's about 30 people that would say otherwise, because I'm sure that they all.
We don't know. Do you think they all did the same? Do you think they were all?
Yeah, I don't feel like you can't get into a position of power without being very acquainted.
That's part of the job. That's part of the job. The application. Yeah.
Yeah. No, seriously. I
look
think
at situations like that, and you wonder why don't they rise up?
Well, I was just thinking, do you want to have your government overthrown? Because that's how you start getting your government overthrown, is just willy-nilly killing people that probably didn't have anything to do with preventing a flood. Like, how do you...
Yeah, it's like
floods happen sometimes. Like, you get torrential rainstorms and things happen, and oh my God, it's a tragedy. But, do you think they were out there, plotting, hey, let's make a flood happen? That'd be fun.
We were just one culvert away from avoiding this whole flood.
Yeah, seriously. All right,
and then that it's like that doing that is going to get better productivity out of the next people that take the power, or is it just he feels that as the leader he needs to make an example out of people to regain sort of public, I don't know about trust, but faith in his power to show he's doing something about this.
I think that sounds more like it.
He's the supreme leader and the buck stops with him. So what do we do when the buck stops with us? You point at somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's all he did was those people died so he wouldn't look bad.
Yeah.
Look like he did something progressive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm completely passing.
Well, and when all the news that you get is controlled by the state, there people might not know any better.
Yeah. Well, from one dictator to somebody who probably wouldn't mind it, based on his recent words. So Elon Musk, somebody who, like, it's funny. Like, I feel like 5 years ago, maybe, he's like, he had an amazing, great reputation. He was this mad scientist who was into all these things, and it's just reputation just constantly taking hits, by his, self-inflicted. But he recently reposted a controversial theory from 4chan on Twitter, we'll refuse to call it X, suggesting that only high status males, including high testosterone men and neurodivergent individuals, are capable of free thinking and should govern a republic. And he labeled it as an interesting observation. So obviously, it is an incredibly sexist and exclusionary theory, but of course he promotes a lot of harmful and divisive ideas. But Ig, what are your thoughts on that? On Elon Musk?
He is a strange man because, of course, he has to pick that one.
Yeah.
Because I don't view Elon Musk as a high T individual, so he had to make sure the neurodivergent part was encouraged in there. Because I even listening to him talk, sometimes I have problem with, like, he's got some speech impediment that, like, when he says such awful things that he says with the speech impediment, it just makes him seem like a really, really bad person. And I used to be the biggest fanboy. Like, I thought all the stuff he was doing was great. Like, we got SpaceX going, and Tesla looks interesting, and you got, like, internet that you can take anywhere in the world and it works just with a little portable satellite. There was all kinds of things that he was doing. But then I just see those, like, okay, like, places in the world that need internet right now because they're having natural disasters and everything. Is like, yeah, we'll send it to you if you send us some money. And it costs you nothing, and it gets you so many better things. And, like, getting into bed with some of these other politicians and some of the things he said, it's like, don't you realize if you just sat in the middle, you could collect from both sides, be the happiest man on the planet. And if you just, it's the same thing with so many other things that I'm going to say today. There's a lot of times where just shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, and what does he know about politics? He's not a politician.
No.
He's not even a scientist.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that he's involved with, he backdoored his way into.
Yeah.
He's not an engineer. He can't write the code. He can't build anything. He just backdoored his way into SpaceX. He backdoored his way into Tesla. He backdoored his way into getting money out of PayPal.
Yeah.
All of the stuff that he did is not of his own doing. He's ended up one of the richest men on the planet, but it's not his own doing.
Yeah, no, I well said. I don't know that I can add anything. And it's like he's done such kind of irreparable harm at this point to his reputation. And I think, it'll be interesting, to see what happens with Twitter. Because, like, it's weird. Because on one hand, like, you have Twitter, which seems like it's become like a cesspool, and I'm shocked that it's still surviving. Although a whole other news story that I was going to bring up, but we, won't talk about, is just the amount of money that everyone's losing in Twitter. But then you have something like SpaceX, which is actually doing some really great stuff. And, like, we, you kind of have to hold out hope that the version of Elon that, like, is this kind of megalomaniac, is able to temper his own issues to allow SpaceX to do the good work it's doing. Yeah,
quite honestly. And as long as he leaves them alone, they'll do the right thing.
Yeah.
The more he's involved with SpaceX, the less well it's going to do.
So it's like, let him stick with Twitter.
He's about a day away from becoming the living embodiment of Lex Luthor. Yeah. He really is. Yeah. Like, at some point, the government will have wherever he is surrounded, and there'll be a standoff, and he'll shoot himself into space. It's coming. He's going off the rails. Yeah. And this is the problem, and it happens with a lot of these people that with big ideas or super talented. Nobody ever tells you no. He has enough money where he can do whatever he wants. He does copious amounts of drugs, because every time I see him interviewed, he's really fucking high. It's just one of those things. It's unfortunate, but he isn't gonna turn out to be our generation's Einstein or anything.
No,
he also has a lot of followers. No. Like, he has people that now it's very similar to the Trumpism, and he's sort of, which makes sense that he's attached himself to that. There are people that he's now sort of worshipped. He is sort of this sort of, like, now right wing of sorts hero, right? That he represents like he represents the voice of a lot of sort of Trumpist type people, right?
Well,
And
what I
he's
think
like,
it is,
well, there's a
Justin, I think
successful person.
he's counterculture. If being Republican was the in thing to be, he would be Democratic.
He's like right wing counterculture. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just counterculture. If that's the popular thing, that's the in thing. So he'll roll with the right wing. And if it was the other way around, he'd be
You think so?
a diehard liberal.
Well,
Absolutely.
just like he talks all the time about how other places want to stop free speech, where if they want to put a community note on something saying this isn't necessarily true, somehow that's stopping free speech. And it's like, well, if people are spreading misinformation, you can say whatever stupid thing you want to say anytime you want to say it. But it should be like, even the job of applications like Facebook, Twitter, and other places like that, to put a note on it if you say something that's just lunacy and say, this is might be not necessarily the truth. Maybe you ought to look a little further into it. Here's somewhere to go look.
Yeah.
Because,
well, it's this whole
and he says
movement.
that in itself is censorship. And I'm
But
like, but it's not.
He's
But he
guilty of doing
censors.
that just this past week. When Trump fell out of his face in Arlington, you better believe that all the articles about that had that warning on it. It could be spam, or it could be not worth your time.
Yeah.
Well, I was reading something. I forgot what the comment was, but it's this push that your idiot beliefs have the same value as scientific evidence. That, like, there's this sort of push to hold everyone's opinion in the same regard, and it's not true, right? Yes, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but that's the push now, and it's sort of perpetuated and pushed by this idea of censorship, free speech. Sort of, it's this new this sort of right-wing-esque thing. Don't let anyone tell you what to believe or what you could say. You could say whatever you want. And it's like, yeah, we know that already. And it just gets wrapped up in this idea that your stupid idea, your conspiracy theory, has as much validity as real scientific proof or something. And that's just the movement.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. No,
I'm waiting for him to start talking about flat Earth or something. I'm waiting. It's next.
It's coming. It is definitely coming. All right, and final news before we get into what we've been watching is this a few weeks back. I know, Cynic, you were sad to hear that Lucasfilm decided not to renew the Acolyte for a second season on Disney Plus, despite decent viewership. Initially, I think it didn't quite keep up the momentum. It had it had good ratings from critics, but it was very divided among Star Wars fans. And while there were ideas pitched for a second season, looks like they will not be pursued. So, Cynic, how disappointed are you in that?
Well, I mean, it wasn't nearly as divided as you think it is, okay? Because it was canceled due to lack of ratings. And this just harkens back to, for before the show even began, the creator, Leslie Hedberg, said, if you don't like it, don't watch it. And people checked it out, didn't like it, and stopped watching. And at I think it was like $150 million budget, and she went back to Disney for more. And then that extra money wasn't used appropriately or added to the show. Like the scenes weren't put in. I mean, it's simple mathematics. It has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with you didn't put the asses in the seats because the product wasn't good enough.
Well, the product wasn't good enough, and the product might have been good enough if she'd have learned to just shut the fuck up. Again, I said it a few times in the show. She was saying things that had nothing to do with the show in press interviews leading up to the release of The Acolyte.
Well, we're seeing it again, too. The slow-moving car crash that is the Snow White live-action movie. The actress now finally has learned to quiet down and stop with spouting her beliefs every time she's asked a question about the movie, but it might be a little too late because I think they released a trailer the other day and it was at 1 million dislikes. So it's going to happen again and again.
Because they can't shut up.
Yeah.
Just shut up.
Just act. Just do your job.
I go and say, I had a good time filming this. It's a really fun movie. We had a great day. Everything is fun. We're going to have a good time. You're going to enjoy it. Say those things. Why would you bring in political views or personal views or anything else into any of these places, or try and instill something that isn't maybe there unless you're really digging deep, And they did that for The Acolyte.
I love this movement of shitting all over the source material. And that's what she did. I'm a woman. I don't need to be rescued. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, I can't wait to see what they may just end up releasing the Snow White film on Disney Plus. That's how badly it's being received, and nobody's even seen it yet. And then that's all due to you basically can't tell the people that are paying your bills, which are the audience, which are collectively all of us, to go fuck off. Regardless of what you feel about what we're saying, we're the ones that are going to take part in what you're doing and provide you a second season. And I'm sure she lost a fuck ton of money with this second season. And, you know, I don't know. I don't believe the pundits on YouTube that are like, oh, she was fired from a bunch of other projects. And I don't believe all of that. But I do believe that she misplayed her hand. And Ryan, I'm so bored. I don't give a fuck about your discourse.
What?
What?
Isn't that part of the song?
What song?
The Amanda Sedberg song. We're so bored we don't give a fuck about your discourse.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a way to approach fandom. There is a toxic part of the Star Wars fandom. I don't think that it's incumbent on a showrunner or an actor to address that part of the fandom, especially when they're trying to put something out, because it just creates more division and it makes the story about something else. So it's like, look, you can say whatever you want and that's fine, but if you're trying to make kind of a judicious or kind of a smart business decision, then it's best to like focus on, hey, here's what we're doing, here's what we're trying to do, here's why we're trying to be different, without insulting a part of them. That a large part of them do need to be smacked over the head, but somebody else should be doing that, not the showrunner who is trying to, you know,
put together a cohesive project.
Huh?
Put together a cohesive project.
Yeah, exactly, right? So yeah,
like, do that.
Do that, put together something good, and let other people handle the discourse, at least until you're done with, you know, you're done with it. But then when the story became about more than that, and the other part, you know, it's two parts, right? One is like the story became about her, the showrunner, and this fight, and then the product was not great, and so then that just made it, you know, even
if it was pretty good, if it's not great, you don't have any room to do that stuff.
Yeah, like if it's Andor, say whatever the hell you want. It's so good that, you know, you effectively are immune. I mean, not even, but
funny
still,
you bring that up though. But how many times you see the showrunner out talking nonsense?
No,
you don't.
During Andor. You don't see any of it.
Yeah, no. So yeah,
as Star Wars fans, and we're all diehard Star Wars fans. Ig's wearing the goddamn shirt right now. I got a bunch of stuff behind me. Ryan and I talk about Star Wars. Yeah, see, like I will never actively root for a Star Wars property to fail. Yeah. Give me more Star Wars. I just don't want to hear shit like, oh, it's the gayest Star Wars. R2D2 is a lesbian. I don't care about any of that. Don't bring your stuff over into my stuff. If it is the gayest Star Wars, as long as it's a good show, fantastic. Let it be the gayest Star Wars. Let R2D2 be the best lesbian he could be. Just fucking put on a good show, and I'll be happy with that. And by the way, not to add to the negativity, but one of the videos I watched, they called her what was it, a dead-faced vacuum of charisma and ability. I was like, geez, I don't think I would be able to recover from that.
All right.
Well, it's like, you know, you talk about that, right? The Last of Us had a huge gay storyline running in it. And if you go back and look at the Cynic Radio podcast, when we reviewed that episode, that was one of the strongest episodes that we reviewed.
Oh, yeah.
So you can have, it's not that we're like gay phobic either. That was the best storyline in that season of that show.
Because it's not what the show was about.
Yeah.
Right.
It was about great writing, you know, suspense, horror, you know, great acting. That's what the show was about. And that's all I care about at the end of the day.
I think there's a fine line between, I think, telling a story and like, and shoehorning your, I don't even want to say agenda, because it's
I watched every episode of Acolyte.
It comes across it comes across like an agenda. See, that's the thing. You're saying that they're not, it's not an agenda, but to someone, especially to like a casual fan like me, when I start making jokes like it's the woke-alite or something like that, it's like going into it now, it's in the back of my mind something, maybe I want to dislike it. Now look, I dislike the show because it was bad, and for no other reason than that. But it doesn't help when you go into watching a show wanting to dislike it. So I think that even though it might not be agenda, if to your your fan base, your casual fan base, it seems like an agenda, well, that's bad news. It doesn't help.
Well, I think that's part of it. Is that like there were definitely attempts to incorporate more diversity, and I don't think it was shoehorned. I didn't feel like it was shoehorned except for what they said outside of the show. And so then when you say that,
Yes.
that's going to color your how you receive the show at that point, because then it's like, well, now I see what they're doing, and then you're almost going to be looking for that.
It's almost
So I
like a
think that's part-
self-inflicted cancellation.
Yeah, exactly. So kind of like so it's like on that level, it's like, yeah, if you're trying just from a business standpoint, it's like, hey, well, you know, let's just go with it. It is what it is, and let people enjoy it or not enjoy it. But to kind of add fuel to the fire was going to make it much more difficult. And when you do have a fan base, it's like, look, if I ever had the chance to write something for Star Wars, I would, you know, I would be quiet and write my thing and just be positive and talk about that, right? And then just like let it be what it is, because you know what the fan base is like, and they like their Star Wars, and no matter what people criticized Andor initially, you know, so you know, no matter how good or bad it is, there will be criticisms. It's how you take those criticisms and you know, keep moving forward. And I think that, you know, that's
if we're being fair, the first episode of Andor was painfully slow.
Yeah.
But if you hang in there, if you're a fan, it got exponentially better, and it turned out to be one of the best things Star Wars has done. And I can't wait for the next season of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just give us good product and we'll go. You know, that's what I keep hearing is the phrase bad product. And that's basically what it boils down to. It was a bad product.
Yeah.
Great idea. Great antagonist, bad product.
And that's the thing, is I think that's the saddest thing of it all, is I want to see that antagonist.
Well, maybe we see him again.
I hope
Like
so.
it doesn't necessarily taint the fact we don't need an Acolyte 2 to see that character again.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Yeah, let's put him in the new Mandalorian movie. Let him be that antagonist.
That's actually, I didn't even mention that. There's some news on that, but we got but you know, let's get to what we've been watching. So Justin, let's start with you. I know you've been busy, so have you been watching anything recently?
I've been sort of digging this show. It's an Amazon show. I believe it's called Signs of the Psychopath. It's a true crime show, and it's interesting, 'cause I've always been a fan of the true crime genre, but this one is real interesting because you really hear a lot more from the psychopaths. You hear long police interviews, and you get their affect, and it's like, and you see sort of the difference, like how different sort of psychopaths, how they reacted, how they went about doing what they were doing, and then of course they have experts in that are actually sort of talking about the differences. I feel like with a lot of the the crime shows, they just sort of throw it to you. They don't go that much into the psychology of it. They talk about the terrible acts that have happened, and maybe they'll talk about the the bad guy a little bit. But this one really goes into the psyche of it, and lots of interviews, and some of it is really, really creepy when you see what some of these people do.
Are any of those signs that they want to capture, torture every person that they encounter in their D&D game?
Yes. Yes. Well, it's funny because they say that video games were a cause, but actually not the video game themselves. But I think for one kid who did some heinous things because the video game that he became addicted to, and it was a violent video game, but he was addicted. It was taken away from him, and then he acted after that. So, but no, having a character in a fantasy game does not necessarily mean psychopathy, but it might.
So, Ig, how about you? Have you been watching anything good?
I watched a movie on Prime that I thought was it's a fun popcorn movie. It's called Jackpot with John Cena and Aquafina.
Okay, yeah. Is it good?
It was a really fun popcorn movie. You just want to sit down and watch something mindless with a lot of good action and some crazy stuff. It was fun. So basically the base premise of this is they have a lottery in California in the not too distant future, because why not, right? But the lottery is a winner is chosen, and the winner has to survive until sundown. And if you kill the winner, and you can't use guns, so it has to be knives, thrown weapons, things like that, but no guns. If you can kill the winner before sundown, you collect the prize. So it's just all kinds of crazy stuff and people chasing and stuff. It's a real good, just kind of,
sounds fun.
Exciting, fighting, running around movie that is full of oh my God, that is crazy.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of cameos, a lot of crazy things happening in it. It's got the guy that played Shang-Chi from
Okay.
the Shang-Chi
Simu Liu,
Simu
whatever
Lin.
his name- Yeah.
He was in it running an agency of people that you can hire for 10% of your winnings or 30% of your winnings to protect you until sundown. You know, it's all kinds of crazy stuff like that. But it was really just funny and entertaining. And like, if you just want to sit down, put on something that you don't have to get too deep into, you don't have to like pay attention. Like if you got up and walked to the bathroom and came back, you're fine. You can still watch the movie. There's not that much crazy story going on that you can't just sit down, put it on, and watch it. It's
Nice.
just a pure fun. And I'm all about once in a while just putting on something for pure fun.
Yeah, that's fair. How about you, Cynic? What are you watching?
Well, we caught up and finished Stranger Things,
Okay.
getting ready for the next season, which I'm extremely happy about because I realized that I hadn't finished the most previous season, so
Oh wow.
I was
so you
happy.
got all the Eddie now.
Yeah. I don't know why I kind of lost contact with the show, but I did. But I'm happy that I went back and watched it. And the other night we sat down and watched a movie called The Instigators with Casey Affleck and Matt Damon. It's on Apple TV, and it's basically about a robbery gone wrong, and it's a lot of fun. It's kind of like what Ike was saying. It's not as serious as The Town. There's a lot of dark humor in it. Matt Damon plays the elder actor kind of pretty well in that movie, like just somebody that's over life. So I kind of identified with that quite a bit. So I would definitely take the hour and 41 minutes and sit down and watch it. But more importantly, I don't want to talk about what I've been watching. I want to talk about what I've been listening to.
Okay.
So there's this whole genre of podcasts that center around Stuttering John Melendez from the Howard Stern Show.
Okay.
Even though he's been out of fandom now for a good 20, 25 years, he started podcast. And from that podcasting, a group called Who Are These Podcasts, who critique other podcasts, and they didn't do us, luckily, I checked, but they started kind of critiquing one of his episodes, and he lost his mind and threatened to sue them all. So it became this thing where there's multiple shows have grown from this, where all they do is critique this one show, but there's been other antagonists that have popped up that they now center on as well. And it's called the Dabbleverse, and they just had their second gathering up in Rochester, which I don't know why you would choose that as your home base, but it's been very, very interesting because there's a lot of not only good podcasters but interesting characters wrapped up into this. Mm-hmm. So the main podcast is Who Are These Podcasters, but there's also another podcast called Uncle Rico, which is ran by Shuli Agar, who used to also be a part of the Howard Stern Show and equally hates John Melendez. So it's really fascinating. Like, you can jump down the YouTube rabbit hole and just listen to these past shows, and it's grown to other shows like Steel Toe, starring this guy Aaron M. Holt, who now is lost his wife because he started swinging with the wrong couple, and they all got addicted to cocaine, and his wife left him. And now he's in. He called the cops on them, and they got arrested for the cocaine abuse. And now they've put restraining orders on. It's fantastic. Wow. Like, if you've got nothing to do on the train and a few brain cells to kill, I would absolutely jump into this stuff and give it a listen, because it's pretty interesting. It's engaging. John Melendez is a void of human being, and he deserves every bit of attention that he's getting.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I did not. Somebody who's kind of fairly versed in podcast world.
There are some shows, Ryan. Wow. There are some shows that are doing really well just critiquing this guy.
That's insane.
They're paying their bills, just waiting for him to put out another
on the portable hole.
Yeah,
we may need to start doing this.
Hey. That's great. All right. So I'll give a couple that I'm watching, and then I'll see if you guys have anything else to recommend. So first is called Chimp Crazy. Which, if you haven't watched it, it's by the guy, I believe, that did the Tiger King, about basically focusing on an exotic animal broker named Tanya Haddix, and kind of her love in quotations of chimpanzees. And it is wild. In a lot of ways, it is as wild as a Tiger King, but kind of in its own way. She's as crazy, the character as what was the Tiger King's name?
Joe Exotic.
Joe Exotic, in her own way, is as kind of delusional and crazy, and just some of the stuff that she does in front of camera is just mind-boggling. Like, and you don't know if it's out of love, out of obsession, out of insanity. I believe it's only 3 episodes in. I think it's a 6 or 8 episode season. So who knows where the hell it's going to go, because already it's batshit crazy. But definitely recommend if you enjoyed the chaos of the Tiger King. This is interesting. It's a little different because, like with Tiger King, obviously we were all at home during COVID, and it was Netflix, so everybody could binge it. It's like a slow burn because we're watching it 1 episode at a time. But on HBO, definitely worth watching. And the second thing I did binge this weekend on Netflix is Chaos. So Chaos is kind of a modern reimagining of Greek mythology. And it's kind of it's like a dark comedy, although I feel like it starts off much more comedic, and then as the show goes on, it gets much more serious. But I think it does a really good job of balancing kind of gods and mortals and famous figures from Greek mythology. And Jeff Goldblum's in it, and I've been listening to different reviews of it. Some love it, some don't. I think he's great and kind of perfectly cast for that role, but it's also like he's playing Jeff Goldblum, so it is what it is. But I found it very entertaining. I think it goes on a little long. I feel like it's a show that it was 8 episodes. It probably could have been a solid 6 episodes. But other than that, I do think it's highly entertaining, really interesting. It does a good job of balancing the comedy with some serious drama. And just a really unique and interesting story that is able to kind of weave Greek mythology into a modern, world and modern context. And, I definitely recommend it. So anybody else have anything to recommend?
Actually, I do. Jumping back over, and you guys may want to take part in this, but we're like a month away from the return of the Daryl Dixon show on AMC. And believe it or not, I actually kind of liked the first season. I caught up on it late. I caught up on that and City of the Dead, which is the Maggie and Negan spinoff. Mostly out of my love for the Michonne and Rick show. Like that got me wanting to watch more Walking Dead. So I jumped over and watched these other 2 spinoffs. And believe it or not, it's nonsensical as Daryl finding his way to France in the middle of the apocalypse. It is such a beautifully shot show. And it gives you just enough substance to kind of keep you going. In the second season, we're going to get a little more Carol, and it's supposed to move from France to Spain, which should give it a whole different visual. And it just the visuals alone actually makes it worth watching. But it is a pretty compelling story, and eventually they're going to bring the whole cast back together, Avengers style. So that really could be worth checking out and covering.
Yeah. Okay, that might be interesting. Yeah, I've got to kind of catch up on all the Walking Dead spin-offs, and I think
we thought it was bad before when you had The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead and other things happening, and now they're just running spin-off after spin-off after spin-off.
Dead Avengers, yeah.
I mean, at least it's got main characters in it. You know what I mean? Like some of the spin-offs they did just had nobodies, and they never really picked up traction. But it was worth it. I'm not the biggest Daryl fan in the world, but I thought it was superior to City of the Dead, and I think it might be leading to a bigger story, which is kind of cool.
Cool. All right. Anything else for you guys, Ig or Justin, to add? Or
no, I've been watching all the things you guys have been recommending, so we've already been.
Nice. Well, this weekend, I don't know if anybody's going to be able to go out, but I think Beetlejuice comes out this weekend, and is something else out? No, is anybody else excited? Am I the only one excited about Beetlejuice?
No, I want to see it.
Yeah,
I definitely. I love Michael
one.
Keaton. I love the original. Yeah. They're bringing back most of the cast that haven't diddled kids, so or been involved with child porn. Yeah. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. Definitely the nostalgia. The nostalgia factor. The trailer, as we kind of talked about, I think it was a little underwhelming. Like, it didn't make me not want to see it, but I'm not like jumping, jumping off the wall, bouncing off the walls to go see it. But it's definitely like, it's Beetlejuice, and I'm going to try, definitely try to go get it.
It kind of felt like more of the same, and I think they could have done something a little different with it to put fresh eyeballs on. I know that they're promoting the hell out of it though. Like, I'm pretty addicted to crumble, and they're doing like a crumble Beetlejuice cake this week, which looks pretty good.
Cool. All right, well, it should be fun. So, we'll see if maybe we'll talk about that a little bit next week.
Yeah, and whatever you guys are doing, if anybody watches this, the chase glitch is not a thing. Don't go do that.
The what?
The chase glitch. You didn't see all the videos.
Oh, is that the
running around
TikTok thing? Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah. Don't do that.
That's called check fraud, and you go to jail for
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Yeah, this week's PSA is, yes, do not...
Don't think it's a glitch.
Yeah.
Banks are going to get their money one way or another.
Yeah, and you will go to jail. So, all right. Well, as usual, all of our stuff is at portablehomepublishing.com, and new issue of the newsletter is coming out next week. So, until next time, Justin.
I think Ig should take it.
All right, Ig.
Don't go in the hole where you get captured.
You generally get captured by the hole.